Don't overlook that dime in your change. Some Roosevelt dimes are worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Silver dimes before 1965 and rare error strikes are treasures hiding in plain sight. That little coin could be far more valuable than you think. The 1966 United States one-dime coin error is one of those fascinating stories in numismatics where something ordinary becomes extraordinary simply because of a small mistake during minting. Most people never give a dime a second thought. It's tossed in a jar, dropped into a parking meter, or slid across a counter without notice. But in 1966, at a time when major changes were happening in U.S. coinage, a handful of Roosevelt dimes escaped the mint with striking errors that today command enormous attention and, in some cases, auction prices that climb well into the tens of thousands of dollars. It is the kind of story that blends history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, and for collectors, it represents one of the most engaging treasures of modern coinage. To really appreciate the 1966 dime error, you have to imagine the moment in history. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint made one of the most important shifts in modern coin production. Rising silver prices made it unsustainable to continue striking dimes and quarters in 90% silver. So the Mint introduced the copper-nickel-clad composition that we still use today. For dimes, this meant the coin's weight dropped slightly and its overall metallic look changed. The decision was controversial at the time. Americans were used to the feel and look of silver coins, and many hoarded pre-1965 issues, causing shortages of new coinage in circulation. In response, the Mint suspended the use of mint marks in 1965, 1966, and 1967 to discourage hoarding and collecting of newly struck coins. This created a unique period in coinage history when no mint marks appeared at all. Against this backdrop of change and experimentation, the 1966 Roosevelt dime took shape. The design itself remained familiar, the obverse featuring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, introduced in 1946 as a tribute following his death, and the reverse with a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength. It was a coin Americans trusted and recognized, but in 1966, certain minting mistakes gave it a second identity as a numismatic rarity point. One of the most famous types of 1966 dime errors involves off-center strikes. In these cases, the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned between the dies during striking, causing the design to be shifted and leaving part of the coin blank. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more collectors want it, especially if the date remains visible. A lightly off-center coin may sell for only modest premiums, but extreme off-center strikes from 1966 have sold at auction for thousands of dollars, especially in high grade. Another highly desirable error variety comes from coins struck on the wrong planchet. Mistakes like a 1966 dime struck on a penny planchet, nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank instantly attract attention because they are so visually striking. Imagine picking up a dime that looks smaller, lighter, or made of the wrong metal entirely. These off-metal errors are among the rarest and most valuable, with certain dramatic examples selling at major auctions for prices as high as $57,000 and even exceeding $100,000 when the condition and rarity align perfectly. Double strike errors from 1966 also fascinate collectors. These occur when a coin is struck more than once without being properly ejected from the press, leaving overlapping images of Roosevelt's portrait or the reverse design. The results are dramatic and unmistakable, and collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices for bold examples. At some of the best auction houses, such as Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, 1966 dimes with bold double strikes have fetched tens of thousands, depending on how clear and dramatic the error is. The auction records for these coins prove their value. While ordinary 1966 dimes without silver content are worth just 10 cents in circulation, error examples have completely rewritten the story. In one particularly notable sale, a 1966 dime with an extreme off-metal error sold for over $70,000, shocking even seasoned collectors. Another superb example of an off-center strike with the date fully visible commanded more than $50,000. The finest known specimens of these dramatic errors continue to break expectations, with prices ranging from $57,000 all the way up to $140,000, depending on rarity and condition. For a coin that started life worth just 10 cents, these auction prices are nothing short of astonishing. What makes the 1966 dime error even more engaging is the fact that these coins could easily have slipped into circulation. Because minting errors were not always caught before distribution, examples were mixed into everyday change, meaning ordinary people could unknowingly receive them. Imagine the thrill of discovering one decades later in a collection of old coins or a jar tucked away in the attic. Stories of such discoveries circulate among collectors, fueling the dream that more are still out there waiting to be found. Collectors are drawn to the 1966 dime not just for its monetary value but for its place in history. This was a transitional year for U.S. coinage, and the errors reflect that period of experimentation and adjustment. The absence of mint marks gives every 1966 dime a distinct look, and when combined with dramatic errors, the coin becomes a true symbol of the changes happening in America's coinage at the time. The demand for these coins continues to rise. Each time one appears at auction, the bidding is fierce, with collectors eager to add such a rare piece to their collection. The energy in the room builds as the price climbs higher and higher, reflecting both the rarity of the coin and the emotional appeal of owning something so unique. It is moments like these that make numismatics more than just a hobby. It becomes a thrilling pursuit of history and rarity, where even the smallest coin can spark passion and excitement. The 1966 dime error also serves as a reminder to look more closely at the coins we handle every day. Most people overlook their change, assuming it's all ordinary. But the truth is, minting errors like those found in 1966 are proof that treasures can hide in plain sight. With the right eye, patience, and knowledge, anyone could stumble upon one of these rarities. For collectors, that possibility is part of the joy, the sense that discovery is always just around the corner. As time goes on, the number of high-grade 1966 dime errors available will only shrink. Coins are lost, damaged, or permanently stored away in private collections. This makes each surviving specimen more valuable, and the auction prices reflect that trend. Where once they might have sold for a few thousand, now they reach into the tens of thousands, and in the very best cases, they push toward and even past six figures. For the average person, it may seem impossible that a dime could be worth as much as a luxury car or even a house, but auction results prove it is absolutely true. When collectors see a dramatic off-metal strike or a perfectly preserved off-center dime from 1966, they know they are looking at something special, something that doesn't come along often, and they are willing to pay handsomely for the chance to own it. So the next time you see a dime, especially one from the mid-1960s, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment to look closely. Check for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, unusual metal composition, or any distortion in the design. Because tucked into those details might be the difference between an ordinary 10-cent coin and a piece of numismatic history worth tens of thousands of dollars. The 1966 dime error continues to capture imaginations, proving that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprises, and that sometimes the tiniest mistakes are the ones that create the greatest treasures. The 1974 United States one-dime coin holds a secret that most people never even realize exists. A story that takes a piece of silver-colored pocket change and transforms it into something extraordinary, something capable of capturing the attention of collectors across the nation. When people think of rare coins, they usually imagine old gold pieces from the 1800s, massive silver dollars, or colonial coins that date back to the very birth of the country. But the reality is, sometimes the most shocking treasures are hiding in plain sight in coins as small and ordinary as the 10-cent dime. And the 1974 dime with errors is one of those rare and exciting cases where a common year produced mistakes that slipped through the minting process, only to later emerge as fascinating rarities worth incredible sums of money when discovered. Some of these coins have stunned collectors at auctions, selling for prices far beyond what most people would ever expect a 10-cent piece to achieve. To understand why the 1974 dime error coins matter so much, you have to imagine the environment of the time. The early 1970s were a period of economic struggle in the United States, with inflation, high unemployment, and political turmoil in the background. The U.S. Mint was working hard to keep up with demand for coins as Americans relied heavily on cash and coinage in everyday transactions. In 1974 alone, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced hundreds of millions of dimes, all bearing the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. The design had been introduced in 1946 to honor Roosevelt shortly after his death, and by the 1970s it was a mainstay of American coinage. With so many dimes being struck and pushed into circulation, it was inevitable that some mistakes would happen. These mistakes, though unintentional, created the kind of rarity that excites collectors decades later. The errors on 1974 dimes range from subtle to dramatic. Some feature off-center strikes where part of the design is missing because the blank planchet was misaligned during striking. Others have die cracks, doubling, or missing details caused by overuse of equipment or a failure in quality control. A few of the most sought after are those struck on the wrong planchet, which means the coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a cent or a foreign coin. These types of mistakes stand out immediately to trained eyes because the weight, size, and metal composition don't match what a dime should be. Imagine finding a dime-sized coin in your change only to realize it has copper coloring or is slightly smaller or thinner than normal. Such pieces are instantly special. Collectors know that error coins like these are much more than accidents. They are stories frozen in metal. They represent a moment when the rigid systems of the U.S. Mint faltered, allowing something unique to escape into circulation. For most people, a dime is just a dime, but to a collector, one of these 1,974 error dimes is a one-of-a-kind artifact. And the market has shown just how much people are willing to pay to own one. Auction records for rare 1974 dime errors reveal hammer prices that leave people stunned. In fact, depending on the type and condition of the error, some of these coins have sold at major auctions for tens of thousands of dollars. The best examples in pristine condition, with bold and unmistakable minting mistakes, have crossed the auction block at figures that can climb into truly life-changing territory. There have been cases where collectors have paid more than $80,000, $95,000, and even over $100,000 for an especially rare and dramatic 1974 dime error. To think that a coin worth just 10 cents could rise to six-figure values is one of the reasons stories like these capture so much attention. What makes the 1974 dime errors even more fascinating is how easily they could have been overlooked. Many of these coins probably spent years or even decades in circulation, passed from hand to hand, tossed into jars, and ignored in piggy banks. Some were likely lost forever. But every once in a while, a sharp-eyed collector or an unsuspecting person finds one in pocket change, realizes that something looks off and sets it aside. The fact that treasures worth over $100,000 can still be hiding among ordinary coins in circulation is what keeps so many people searching and examining their change. There's a thrill in the hunt, a sense that you never know when you might stumble across a rare piece. The value of these coins at auction isn't just about the error itself. Condition plays a massive role too. A 1974 dime with an error that is worn and heavily circulated might still fetch a nice price. But one that is in mint state condition, with full luster and no signs of wear, will command far higher bids. Collectors and investors are drawn to pieces that stand out both because of their uniqueness and because of their preservation. When a coin manages to combine both of those qualities, the bidding wars can get intense, pushing prices upward into the kind of territory that makes headlines point. One of the most famous examples is a 1974 dime error that was struck on a foreign planchet, making it both an American coin and an unusual hybrid of sorts. When it appeared at auction, collectors couldn't resist competing for it, and the price climbed rapidly before finally settling at over $100,000. That single sale made headlines in the numismatic community and served as a reminder of just how much demand there is for dramatic and rare mint errors. Another case involved an off-center strike so bold that nearly half of the design was missing, yet the date was still visible. The rarity and eye-catching appearance of that error drove the value into the high five figures, selling for more than many people's annual salaries. Stories like these ignite the imagination because they blur the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. The dime is so small and easy to overlook, but in the right circumstances, it becomes a treasure, a conversation piece, and an investment all in one. Collectors love these coins not just for their monetary value, but for the narrative they carry. Every time someone sees a 1974 dime error, they're reminded of the complexity of the minting process, the chance involved in mistakes, and the rarity of something unusual escaping into circulation. It's also important to remember that not all 1974 dime errors are worth tens of thousands of dollars. Some minor doubling or light die cracks might only be worth a few hundred or a few thousand depending on condition. But the extreme errors, the ones that are instantly noticeable and visually striking, are the ones that have reached auction prices rivaling luxury cars or homes. And those are the coins that people dream of finding. For collectors today, the lesson is clear. Never dismiss a coin just because it looks ordinary at first glance. The 1974 dime proves that even modern coins, produced in massive quantities, can contain hidden treasures. Checking your change carefully, especially older coins, can reveal incredible surprises. Many of the most valuable error coins discovered in recent decades were found not by dealers or experts, but by regular people who happened to notice something unusual. The best part is that the story of the 1974 dime isn't just about one or two examples. It's about the possibility that others are still out there waiting to be found. With auction results already proving that these errors can sell for staggering amounts, the incentive to keep searching is stronger than ever. It might seem like a long shot, but the reality is someone has to be the next person to find one, and that discovery could be worth $80,000, $90,000, or even over $110,000 depending on the type of error and its condition. So the next time you come across a dime from 1974, take a closer look. Check the edges, study the strike, and compare the details. If something looks strange or unusual, don't dismiss it. That little coin in your hand could be a minting mistake that slipped through the cracks. A rare survivor that collectors would pay dearly to own. After all, history has shown time and again that the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one is often just a tiny error, the kind of mistake that transforms 10 cents into a six-figure prize. And with the 1974 dime, that transformation is more real than most people ever realize. The 1989 United States one-dime coin might look like just another ordinary piece of change that passes through countless hands every single day, but behind its familiar face lies a story that has surprised collectors, historians, and even those who never thought twice about the coins in their pockets. For most people, a dime is simply 10 cents, small, light, and often overlooked. But in the rare world of minting errors, even the smallest of mistakes can turn a simple coin into an incredible treasure worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. The 1989 dime is one of those pieces, carrying with it error varieties that have amazed collectors and sold for prices at major auctions that far exceed anything one might expect from such a small denomination. To understand why the 1989 dime error is so fascinating, it helps to remember its context. The Roosevelt dime had already been in circulation for more than 4 decades by 1989, first issued in 1946 to honor Franklin D. Roosevelt. The design had become a fixture of American coinage, with Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and the familiar torch, olive branch, and oak branch design on the reverse. By this time, the mint had produced billions of these dimes, and the precision of modern minting made errors rare. That rarity is exactly what makes the surviving error coins from 1989 so special. They should not exist, and yet they do, standing as proof that even the most controlled systems can slip and create something unique. Among the errors seen in 1989 dimes, off-center strikes are some of the most visually dramatic. Imagine holding a dime where Roosevelt's profile has slid to the side, leaving part of the coin blank. Some of these off-center errors are only slightly shifted, while others show dramatic misalignments that make them look almost like abstract art. The more dramatic the error, the higher the coin's value, especially if the date remains visible, since collectors need to identify the year for the coin to be fully appreciated. Another fascinating type of error comes in the form of double die strikes. On these coins, inscriptions such as Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled, creating a ghostly shadow effect that adds mystery and allure. Even small doubling can spark the interest of collectors, but bold, dramatic examples are especially desirable and command much higher prices. Perhaps the most astonishing 1989 dime errors are those struck on the wrong planchets. These are mistakes where the dime design was accidentally struck on a blank meant for another coin, sometimes even a foreign coin. The results are coins that weigh differently, appear in different colors, or are significantly undersized or oversized compared to normal dimes. These wrong planchet errors are among the rarest, and when they surface, they ignite bidding wars at auctions because they represent mistakes that by all rights should never have left the mint. Over the years, these 1989 dime errors have found their way into the spotlight at major auctions, where the bidding results have been nothing short of spectacular. While a regular dime is worth no more than its face value of 10 cents, an error dime from this year has fetched prices that range from several $1,000s to extraordinary heights. Off-center strikes in mint state condition have sold for figures in the low 5-figure range, surprising even experienced collectors. Dramatic wrong planchet errors, however, have sold for astonishing amounts. At one auction, a 1989 dime struck on a foreign planchet brought more than $40,000, while another misstrike with a nearly blank reverse hammered at a price that exceeded $50,000. The best results, though, come from coins that combine rarity with exceptional condition. One of the finest known 1989 dime errors, featuring a sharp strike on the wrong planchet and preserved in superb mint state condition, sold for an amount that stunned the numismatic community, reaching well above $60,000 at auction. Other reports mention examples selling in the range of $70,000 to $80,000 when competition among bidders was especially fierce. These auction results demonstrate just how much value collectors place on uniqueness, scarcity, and I appeal that it is this contrast that makes the 1989 dime error so captivating. On one hand, you have the ordinary, everyday dime that most people ignore. On the other, you have these incredibly rare pieces that have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. The difference lies in a small mistake, a tiny moment at the mint where machinery faltered or human oversight allowed an error to slip through. That mistake transformed an ordinary coin into a numismatic legend. The stories of how these coins were discovered add another layer of excitement. Some were pulled from circulation by sharp-eyed individuals who noticed something odd about the coin in their hand. Others were found by collectors searching through rolls of coins from banks, carefully checking each piece in hopes of finding something unusual. These discoveries remind everyone that treasures can still be found in the most unexpected places. Even today, there is a chance, however slim, that someone might find a rare 1989 dime error sitting in a jar of spare change, completely unaware of its potential value until they look closer. Collectors who own or pursue these coins often describe the experience as thrilling. To them, a 1989 dime error is not just a coin. It is a piece of history, a tangible reminder that mistakes can become treasures, and that rarity creates beauty. Auction catalogs describe them as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and when the bidding begins, the excitement in the room or online is palpable. Each bid drives the price higher, and the final hammerfall often leaves both buyers and onlookers in awe. The symbolic power of these coins is just as important as their monetary value. Roosevelt's image represents leadership, resilience, and progress, and to see that image appear in a flawed or unusual form adds depth to the story. These errors are not imperfections in the negative sense. They are symbols of uniqueness, of how something unexpected can carry extraordinary value. They remind us that sometimes flaws can be treasures, and mistakes can turn into works of art. The legacy of the 1989 dime error continues to grow as more people learn about its existence and as more examples come to light. Each auction sale adds to the story, reinforcing its reputation as one of the most fascinating modern error coins. With some examples selling for over $70,000 or even close to $80,000, the coin has earned its place among the most desirable numismatic treasures of the late 20th century. For those who dream of discovering one, the lesson is clear. Never dismiss a coin as ordinary without taking a closer look. In the world of numismatics, what appears small and insignificant can sometimes hold unimaginable worth. A 1989 dime that looks unusual might just be one of those rare treasures, capable of transforming 10 cents into tens of thousands of dollars. So the next time you hold a dime from 1989, don't take it for granted. Examine it carefully, pay attention to the details, and remember that history has shown us remarkable things can be hidden in plain sight. Somewhere out there, tucked away in a jar, resting at the bottom of a drawer, or exchanged as loose change, could be a 1989 dime error waiting to reveal itself. And if you're lucky enough to find one, you'll be holding a piece of numismatic history that once astonished collectors at auction and sold for breathtaking prices, proving beyond a doubt that the smallest coins can sometimes carry the biggest stories.